Chapter 15. Katie woke up first the next morning. She could see light coming through her bedroom window, so she checked the clock. It was almost 7. She turned to face Joe, who opened his eyes, smiled, and said, "Good morning, beautiful." "Good morning," Katie said. "Did we really go all night without sex?" "Let's not make that a habit," Joe said. "So what do you think?" Katie asked. "Should I bring you home?" "I think we should stay here and see what we can learn today. We can revisit the question tomorrow." "So, where do you want to start?" "Let's go back to the scene of the crime." "Okay," Katie said, "but I think you should take me out for breakfast first." "So you don't want me to cook for you this morning?" "No, it's the weekend. You deserve to relax and let someone else do the work." When Katie was ready, they headed to a nearby restaurant that Katie often ate at. It was the End Unit in a small strip mall. When they arrived, the place was nearly full, but they were able to get a small table in the back. A middle-aged woman with her long brown hair tied back in a ponytail came to their table and asked if they wanted something to drink. Katie said she wanted a coffee, and Joe asked for an orange juice. "Did you give up on coffee already?" Katie asked. "I wanted to have a shared experience with you, which I did. Now that I accomplished that, I figured I could return to what I like." "You don't like sharing experiences with me?" Katie asked. "Of course I do." "Wait, are you pulling my leg?" Katie laughed and said, "You're not the only one with a sense of humor." "Oh, so you think I'm funny?" "You do have the ability to make me smile from time to time." The waitress came with their drinks and asked if they knew what they wanted. Katie ordered a Belgian waffle, and Joe ordered a veggie omelet. When she left, Katie asked, "Why did you want to stay? I mean, we could have had a nice weekend at your cabin instead of running around town on a quest for something we may never find." "I didn't want you to return to work on Monday feeling like a failure. We may not learn anything new this weekend, but whatever happens, you will know you did your best and didn't give up." Katie put her hand on his and said, "Thank you, Joe. I would not have made it this far without your insights. I wish you could be my partner on all my cases." Joe wasn't sure what to say to Katie. He wanted to hold out hope that a solution to their inevitable separation would present itself, but their time together was drawing to an end, and he wasn't sure a way could be found to stay together. Fortunately, the waitress showed up and said, "Your breakfast will be up in just a minute." Finally, Joe said, "Katie, I don't know what the future will bring us. I don't know if I will always be able to work with you like this. What I do know is that I will always be there for you." They were interrupted again by the waitress putting their food on the table. "Is there anything else I can get you folks?" she asked. "No, thank you," Katie said. There was an awkward silence, and then Katie said, "You will be 2 hours away. How exactly will you be here for me?" "Things tend to work themselves out if you have faith," Joe said, unsure if he believed it himself. When they finished breakfast, they headed to the scene of the crime. They parked in the same parking lot as before and walked the quarter-mile to the crime scene. This time, the police tape was gone, and the place was almost deserted except for a couple of walkers who passed them on the way there. The murder occurred near a group of trees just before the trail reached Lake Michigan. Joe walked to the opening near the lake and looked around. He then walked 20 yards in the other direction and looked around. "My guess is the murderer hid in these trees and waited for the couple to show up. The trail has a curve, so it is in a spot where nobody can see unless they are very close." "It's too bad there aren't any cameras out here," Katie said. "Cameras? You may be onto something, Katie." "I am? What am I onto?" "Come on," Joe said and took Katie's hand. He led her back to the parking lot and looked around. A building stood next to the parking lot. It sold hot coffee, sodas, and snacks. Joe pulled Katie toward the building. "Slow down," Katie said. "I didn't wear my running shoes." Joe looked at Katie's feet and noticed for the first time she was wearing high-heeled boots. "We need to get you some comfortable shoes," he said. Katie looked at her feet and said, "I paid a lot of money for these. What's wrong with them?" When they approached the building, Joe saw 2 cameras, one on either side of the order window. They were set up to record the line of people from opposite directions. One of the cameras pointed directly to the parking lot. Look, Joe said, pointing at the cameras. Katie looked at the cameras and then looked back at the parking lot. You're a genius, Joe, Katie said. You gave me the idea. They approached the window, and a young man said, What can I get for you? We are with Channel 23 News, Katie said. Are you aware of the murder that occurred here the other day? Oh, yes. That's all anybody has been talking about lately. We'd like to take a look at your camera footage of the parking lot from that morning, Joe said. There may be a clue as to who did it on those recordings. I don't know, the young man said. I don't think I'm allowed to show those to people. Do you really think your boss would not want to help catch a murderer? Katie asked. I just don't want to lose my job. Joe pulled a $100 bill out of his wallet and said, Would this offset the risk? Katie looked at Joe with surprise, but the young man took the money and went around to open the door. He led them to a back office and accessed the video files on the office computer. What day and time do you want to look at? He asked. Joe wasn't sure, so he looked at Katie. She thought for a moment and said, The murder took place around 6:30 on Tuesday. Let's start around 5:45. The clips are in 10-minute increments, he said. How about 5:50? That's fine, Joe said. The young man searched for the correct clip and brought it up. It was in black and white because it was using night vision. It showed the date and time in the bottom right corner. Joe asked if he could speed it up. The man clicked a button a few times, and they watched it at 10 times the normal speed, but saw nothing useful. The man then moved on to the next clip and watched that one at the same 10 times speed. About halfway through the clip, a car zipped by. Wait, stop. Go back, Joe said. He brought it back to just before the car went by and played it at normal speed. They watched a dark-colored classic Corvette drive by and park at the far end of the parking lot. Oh my God, Joe said. We saw that car at that apartment building. Are you sure it's the same one? Katie asked. Can you freeze on the car? Joe asked. The young man rewound the video and stopped as the Corvette drove by. Joe studied it for several seconds. It looks like a 58, just like the other one. How many of those do you think are driving around Milwaukee? Bring it forward a little. Let's see what the license plate says. He played it forward and stopped when the license plate came into view. Damn, Joe said. It's too pixelated to read it. They watched the rest of the clip. After the driver parked the car, they observed a figure get out and walk down the trail. It was too far away to see any detail. They couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman. They didn't see anyone else get out of the car, so assuming this was the killer, they now knew they were looking for a single suspect. The following clip showed a sedan driving by and parking near the Corvette. Two people got out that Joe and Katie assumed were the Williamses. They walked onto the trail and disappeared. A couple of clips later, they watched the Corvette leave the parking lot, but could not make out the driver. Katie handed the young man her business card and said, I need you to email those clips to me. Joe slipped the man another 20 and said, Thank you. As they walked back to the car, Katie said, I don't think you needed to pay that man. Maybe not, but it worked and was worth the money. Besides, he probably has more of a use for the money than I do. When they got back inside the car, Joe said, We need to go back to that apartment where we saw that car. I was thinking the same thing, Katie said. When they arrived at the apartment building, the Corvette wasn't in the parking lot. Nobody was outside, so Joe and Katie went inside and knocked on the nearest door. They waited for a while and knocked again. They gave up and started walking towards the next door when they heard the first door open. They turned and saw an old man appear in the doorway. He looked close to 90 and had a cane in his left hand. Can I help you? The man asked. They stepped back towards the old man, and Katie said, Hi, my name is Katie, and this is Joe. We are with Channel 23 News. We are looking for the owner of the old black Corvette that was parked here the other day. Oh, that's a beautiful car, isn't it? The man said. I dreamed of having one like that when I was young, but I couldn't afford it on a painter's salary. Do you know who it belongs to? Joe asked. Sure, that's the landlord's car. What is his name? Joe asked. I'm sorry, I don't know that. I write my rent check out to the management company. The owner usually comes around when there is a major problem or if he has to meet with contractors or something like that. There's been a lot of those visits lately. Really? What kind of problems go on here? Katie asked. You name it, the man said. This place is old and due for a renovation. I guess the biggest problem is with the plumbing. It seems they are cleaning up after a plumbing leak every month or two. They also have a lot of electrical issues, and the roof needs to be replaced. How do you feel about living here? Katie asked. I do okay here. If I were younger, I would move, but now it's easier to stay put. Besides, I have nobody around to help me move, and I'm certainly not going to go to one of those homes where old people go to die. I don't blame you, Joe said. Keep your independence as long as possible. Katie gave Joe a dirty look, then turned to the old man and said, Thank you so much for your time. As they walked back to the car, Katie asked, What was that crack about independence? Do you think having a woman in your life will somehow tie you down? Joe looked surprised at the question and said, No. That's not it at all. For most of my life, I have been worried about people finding out what I am capable of. I fear if that happens, I will be taken away and kept in isolation while men in white coats poke and prod me, trying to learn what makes me work. I don't see nursing homes as being much different, except nobody is trying to learn anything there. Katie put her arm in Joe's and said, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have jumped to conclusions. You should know I don't see being with you restrictive at all, Joe said. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I have done more since meeting you a week ago than I have done for the last year or more. I feel like I am at the beginning of a great adventure. They got in the car, and Katie said, Yes, an adventure that will end when you return home. She started the car and put it in drive. Joe wanted to say something, but he didn't know what to say, so they just drove in silence for a while. Finally, he said, What should we do now? You mean about the case? Yes, I assume you want to research who owns that building. Of course, Katie said. We can do that from my apartment. They returned to Katie's apartment, and she opened her laptop and checked her email. She saw the email she asked for with the video files. They were not attachments, but rather links, so she had to download each one onto her computer. She then went to the county appraiser's website. She typed in the address of the apartment building and looked for the owner's name. It's owned by a company called McKay Investments, LLC. That name sounds familiar, Joe said. Can you find out who owns that company? Joe asked. I think so, Katie said. I'm just not sure where to go to look up business names. She searched for where to look up business names in Wisconsin. After scrolling past a few websites subtly marked ad, she found the correct one and clicked the link. She then typed in the business name and read the results. Joe looked at the screen and said, Matthew and Laura McKay. I've heard that name before. It suddenly occurred to Joe where he had seen that name before. He opened his wallet and took out the business card that he picked up from the police station. He showed it to Katie, who said, Captain Matthew McKay. Oh my God. Oh my God is right, Joe said. We have to tread carefully here. We can't exactly march into the police station and accuse the captain of a double murder. We need more, Katie said. What if we're wrong? What if there is an identical Corvette in Milwaukee? You have a valid point. I think it's time to get Lieutenant Garcia involved. Do you think we can trust him? Katie asked. I don't know, Joe said. He did seem a little annoyed that he was ordered to put the brakes on the case. I think there is a good chance he wants to solve this as much as we do. Katie took out her phone and dialed Lieutenant Garcia's phone number. When it started ringing, she hit the speaker button. It was answered on the third ring. Hello, Lieutenant Garcia here. Lieutenant Garcia. Hi, this is Katie from Chanel 23 News. I'm here with my partner, Joe. Hello, Katie and Joe. What can I do for you? Well, Katie said, we need to see you. It's important. I'm home with my family today. Can it wait? Joe said. Family time is important and we hate to interrupt it, but we need 10 minutes of your time. 15 tops. We will come to you if that is okay. Give me a moment, please, Lieutenant Garcia said before putting his phone on mute. After about 30 seconds, he said, I'll meet you at your place. Give me your address. Katie told him her address, and he said, I'll meet you there in 30 minutes. Joe put his arms around Katie and said, We have 30 minutes. What shall we do? Are you 100 or 17? I think you have just enough time for a cold shower. Joe laughed and said, You mean you don't fantasize about being caught by a police officer? Katie put her hand on Joe's face and said, I'm going to assume you are joking right now. A half hour later, there was a knock at the door. Katie answered and invited Lieutenant Garcia inside. Thank you for coming, Lieutenant Garcia, she said. I'm off duty, he said. Today, I'm just Gabe. Okay, Gabe, she said. We appreciate you taking the time to come here. So, what did you find that is so important? It's probably better that we show you, Katie said. Please follow me. She led him to her dining room table, where her laptop was open. She clicked on a video file, and when it opened and started playing, she said, This is a video from Veterans Park the morning of the murder. The video begins at 6 in the morning, approximately 30 minutes before the murder occurred. Gabe and Joe were standing behind Katie, watching the video. What are we looking at here? Gabe asked. Wait for it, Katie said. After another minute, the Corvette appeared, and Katie hit pause. Gabe looked closely at the screen, and after several long seconds, finally said, Holy shit! Joe said, So I guess you recognize the car. My captain owns a car like that, but it couldn't have been him. There must be another car like that in town. There's something else we haven't told you yet, Katie said. Captain McKay owns an apartment building on the same block as the Williamses' apartment building. We checked it out, and the place needs expensive renovations. He was just offered a hefty sum of money for a property that is probably a money pit, but the Williamses were keeping him from collecting. I think that's a good motive for murder. Let's also not forget he pulled you off the case for no good reason. Are you sure about your information? Gabe asked. We found him and his wife listed as owners of the building, Joe said. We also saw his Corvette parked in front of the building. That's how we put it together. It couldn't have been him, Gabe said again. I understand and respect your loyalty to your boss, but you need to look at the facts, Katie said. I am looking at the facts, Gabe said. Here's a fact for you. He took out his phone, scrolled through recent calls, and found what he was looking for. Here is the call I got Tuesday morning telling me there were 2 bodies found in the park. It came in at 6:45 a.m. The number it came from is the police station's number. He showed them the phone. How does that prove anything? Joe asked. It was Captain McKay on the other end of the line. He sometimes gets to work early to catch up on paperwork. He was there early that day and did not drive his Corvette to work. In fact, he rarely drives that car to work. He has a plain-looking white sedan. I couldn't tell you what make car he drives, but I know the Corvette was not there that morning. Well, that throws a monkey wrench into our theory, Katie said. What do you think we should do now? You shouldn't do anything. I need to figure this out, Gabe said. We have the weekend. I will see if there is a similar Corvette registered in the city. There are a lot of cars in Milwaukee. There must be at least one more. I'll let you know if I find anything. You two should just enjoy your weekend and stay out of trouble. That's asking a lot, Joe said. I figured as much, Gabe said. I'll be in touch. Right now, I need to spend some quality time with my wife. You two should do the same. When Gabe Garcia left, Joe said, He's right. We should put this case on hold and enjoy our time together. This audiobook continues on the next video. For more information on this book and others by this author, please visit charleshuss.com.